Today we're jumping out of the normal tools that I cover, things like bricks, generate press and generate blocks and so on, and we're going to take a look at a pre-alpha build of Divi 5. Now first of all, let me just quickly say this is just the interface we can play with. We can't preview, so we can't see code quality or anything that's actually going on outside the editor area. This will be available when an alpha build is released, which apparently isn't going to be very long, within the next few weeks I believe. At which point I will, if I have access to it, download it, install it, and then take it for a ride that way. But let's take a look at the interface and see how this all works. Now, let me just quickly say, I was never a fan of the existing Divi interface. I kind of found there's lots of little panels all over the place, so I'm curious to see how different this is. Again, I'm not a Divi user, so I'm coming at this from a new user's point of view. So this is the interface. It's probably a little bit closer to what we're used to with tools like bricks and so on, although you will notice this completely devoid of all the options on the left-hand side for all of your different elements and things like that. But let's take a quick look at the interface and then we'll jump in and start having a play around. So first of all, on the left-hand side, you've got the ability to add layouts, you've got layers, you've got wireframe view, which is, again, something that I was never a big fan of, but I can kind of see why this would be useful if you want to sort of take the design out of it and just see the component pieces that make up the overall layout. You've got other options like actions, the action icons on hover and so on. And the nice thing with this is this left-hand side, if you open certain panels up, you can then dock them. So for example, if we open up the builder settings, this is a floating window, so we can move this around, we can resize it and so on. But what you can also do is simply drag this over and you'll see you get this blue line. We can dock that in the left-hand side. That's quite nice. It gives you a bit more flexibility. It's more like a desktop app. And then inside here, you can do things like change the opacity of the disabled modules and so on. You can change the interface between light and dark mode. You can change the color scheme. You can see you can tweak various different aspects. This does lead me on, first of all, to one of the things that I think really needs to be addressed when you switch to the dark mode. And in all honesty, it's a little bit there when you're in the light mode as well, but not as bad. And that's accessibility. For example, if you go to the right-hand side, you can see you've got this kind of 3-tab section. Well, the design and the advanced are very, very low contrast. So I think this is something that really needs to be addressed from an accessibility point of view to make these easy to see. At the moment, they're a little bit on the dark side. So just a little nitpick, and hopefully this is something that will be addressed when this is a final release. And the same thing goes if you actually switch it over to the default blue. I find the blue is quite difficult to see because you're blue on an almost black background or bluey black background. Contrast really isn't there. So switching this over to something like red, for example, which is a bit in your face, or orange, or ultimately green, does make it a little easier to see. And you can switch between the light and dark mode at the top here as well, so it's very easy to do. Then if you want, you've got options up in the top corner for your page settings. You can open up different aspects here. So again, this is a floating panel, which we can resize and move around. You can see this is our right-hand panel, so we can bring that back over. You can dock that on the right-hand side. It's nice that you can dock and undock and move these things around. If you like the floating panels, you got access to that. And inside here, you can see you've got your typical traditional 3-tab setup. So your content, this is for your page settings at the moment. Your design, so you can handle things like global spacing for your gutter. Change the actual color. So for example, you've got your dark text color, your light text color. Come into advanced, you can set up custom CSS, visibility options inside here, position, and so on. That's quite useful. Now, if we start to break things down and go over the actual editing area itself, you'll see you've got what is traditional when it comes to Divi, which is when you hover over, you get this kind of icon-led interface. And as you can see, as you go with the different elements, you get the different sets of icons. So from here, you can go to your different modules. You can open up the settings. So this heading section, for example, or text section. Over on the right-hand side, you've got your content again, your design and your advanced. You can switch between the different responsive modes from here. So you can switch to tablet to see what it's going to look like, and to your phone and so on. You can do the same at the top. This is, again, is one of those things that if I'm zooming in and zooming out, depending on the resolution of my design, I'm finding that if I use those options, you can see I'm using the keyboard shortcuts here. And what's happening is this is actually switching between the different responsive modes, whereas what I wanted to do is zoom into the interface or out inside the browser itself, because sometimes on a higher resolution, you need to zoom in a little bit. This is kind of overriding that. Maybe there's an option here to take that off, but for me, I don't want my standard keyboard browser shortcuts to be taken over by Divi itself. So again, this is something that I hope doesn't make it through to the final version because it's a little bit annoying from my point of view. Anyway, again, like I say, these are my little nitpicks. So you've got your module settings, which, like I say, gives you the 3 tabs in the top. And inside there, you can see we can modify various different aspects, things like background colors and so on. You can see easy to change that. You've got your global colors, your recent colors. Now, the interface does have some quirks, but it is pre-alpha, so it's to be expected. You can click here and you can choose different colors from here if you want to, and you can use the eyedropper tool as well. So there's lots of options here to customize things, and you can set background colors, gradients, background images, videos, patterns, and so on, even using background masks. You can apply an admin label to this if you want to, from an organizational point of view, community design. You can set up your text. You know, there's pre-designed options here, some of which are nice, some of which are pretty ugly. But everything you'd kind of expect to see inside the interface. The animation is here, so if you want to apply animation effects to it, you can do that, and you can adjust the different animation options like the easing and so on. So nothing you haven't probably already seen, but it is nice the way this is put together, and it is responsive. That's one thing I will definitely say. I know they've touted the whole how quick everything is. They're not lying. It is quick. You've also got things like your conditions built in. It's pretty limited at the moment. You've got your status, your logged in status, user roles, and author. Hopefully this is something they will expand into more options as they get closer to the final release. Transitions, visibility, scroll effects, and so on. Okay, so all those things are pretty self-explanatory. You can also come in and you can duplicate rows. You can change column structure if you want to. Again, everything's inside here. Now, this is where a consistency thing kind of has a bit of an issue for me. You'll notice now that I can't actually move this panel around, whereas other ones I can move and I can position where I want. It's also persistent. So if I click outside this, I expect that to close. Whereas in this example, it doesn't. So I can't move it. I can't close it other than clicking on the X. So it's a little bit of a strange design choice. I can appreciate they maybe don't want you to move it. I can't see why. Some panels can move and some panels can't. But the fact that you have to click the X to close it, in my opinion, is a little bit silly. You know, it's one of those things that chances are once you've selected what you want or you've accidentally clicked it, you don't want to use it. Well, I don't want to have to choose something. Let's undo that, which my undo doesn't actually work, which is kind of annoying. But like I say, it is a pre-alpha build. Do you know what I mean? It's like this kind of things like this. There's like inconsistency between the interface elements. Some are draggable, some are, you can position them where you want, some can be docked, other ones can't be moved. They have to be clicking the X to close them down, clicking outside won't allow you to close them down. Little things like that, a little bit annoying. Now, these are some of the key things, but let's talk about the speed aspect again. For example, let's say we want to duplicate something here. It's very, very quick. So we'll say duplicate row, click, done. There you go, there's your duplicate. No hanging around, no faffing about. And let's select that. So we'll come over to this section, you can select it, and you can come in and you can start adjusting things. So let's go to transform, for example. So let's move this up a little bit. And then we've got these transform scales. Now this has all been done in real time. How quick that is. It's incredibly quick and smooth. This is something that's very, very nice inside the interface. It is very snappy, it's very responsive. It is very much like working on an application on the computer itself as opposed to a browser-based application. If we take a look up the top, then you've also got your options for importing and exporting. You can clear your layout. You can add it to your library. You'll notice that the exit and the preview are not actually working, and we can't save anything here because it is a pre-alpha interface design kind of setup, so you can see how to work with it. So the speed of the interface is very snappy. It's very much like working with a desktop environment. Let's take a quick look at some of the other options on the left-hand side, and then I'll give you my kind of thoughts of where Divi 5, the interface at least, is right now. So we come back over, you see we've got the option to add layouts. We can choose that, and then we've got a bunch of pre-built layouts. Probably things you've seen before, very similar to what we've seen. Close that down. You've also got the option there for your layers. So your layers is basically, it shows you all the different elements that build up your overall design. We can dock that on the left-hand side if you want to, and you can see things are broken down inside here. So we can get a section. Inside the section, we've got our row, our columns, our text. So it's very easy to be able to go through this and select what you want. Your 3 dots then gives you options for things like you can edit that, you can clone it, delete it, whatever you kind of want to do with it. Pretty cool. Save to your library. You can delete the heading although you can delete heading twice. I'm assuming that's from your library, so that's a bit odd. Now, obviously, there's some things inside here that I would like to see, like the ability to open all of these in one go and collapse all of these in one go. Or maybe even each section, you can just open or collapse just the section. Little things that make, when you've got complex designs, opens up simple options to make everything a little bit easier. This is totally detachable, so you can move this over to your overall design. You can pop it over to the right-hand side if you prefer to dock it over there. You can see that'll dock in with your panel. So again, very much like a desktop application. Want to remove it from there, just drag it over. You kind of get the idea. Your builder settings, as we've already seen, so you can control how the builder is actually going to operate in various different respects. Then you've also got things like your X-ray mode, which will show you all the outlines, so you can see exactly how things are broken up on your design. These are all enable or disable, so your parent actions, so you can enable and disable. Action icon on hover. You kind of get the idea with this. And if you want, there's the help that'll give you how to use all the various different aspects of this. There's one more thing I want to draw your attention to, which I do like. When you're sort of getting down into the woods, so for example, let's dock this. I will say we're at the heading level there. If we take a look over on the right-hand side, you can see we've got these breadcrumbs that shows us we're inside a section, inside a row, inside a column. I can step back through these and I get access to any of the settings for those particular sections or parts of the design. I quite like that. I think that's pretty useful if you want to see how far into a design you are and you may not have the layers panel open. It's pretty cool. You can select those options and get stuck right in to exactly where you are inside your design. So you can see we're right down to the text element there. It would be nice if this kind of married up with what we see with the left-hand panel. But you see, you have to actually click on the item itself to get the full breakdown down to the text level there. You'll also see you can drag and drop inside this layers panel, so we can drag this up and position it. It's a little bit picky on how it allows you to do it. Sometimes it'll work for me, sometimes it won't. All kind of depends where I position things. So yeah, on that front, it's a little bit quirky, should we say. Now for me, I like what they're doing with the interface here. It feels more akin to the tools that I'm used to. But if you're a Divi 4 user and you love that interface, this is probably going to take a little bit of a learning because it is very different to what you're used to. Yes, you still got those floating panels. Yes, you can still open various different things up by clicking the different options on the actual element level itself, or whatever they call it here. But I think it's a better way of working. It's a little less panel here, panel there, panel everywhere, kind of floating thing. Speed-wise, very impressive. It's really, really responsive. Like I said earlier in the video, it's very much like working on a desktop application, not something inside your browser. So that is going to make working inside Divi a lot nicer. How that's going to scale with very complex site designs, we'll have to wait and see. What the code quality is like, there's been output here. Again, once the alpha release is available, we'll have to wait and see and test it out there because I can't get access to that at this point in time. But it's an interesting start, but let me know your thoughts on this. Do you use Divi? Is this something you'd be interested in using? What do you think of these updates? Too much? Too little? Too late? Let me know in the comment section down below. As always, my name is Paul C. This is WPTuts. Until next time, take care.